When deciding which game I would complete my first ever review on, I didn't realize just how daunting of a task that would be. As a lover of RPGs, The Witcher 3 would have been the obvious candidate. However, for a first-time reviewer such as myself, that game, simply put, is just too big to review at my current level of expertise. The last game I had even thought of considering was a game I had barely sunk my teeth into. Not because I didn't love its unique vision or its addicting gameplay, but because it was just too damn hard. Bloodborne is not a game for today's casual gamer. It requires patience, perseverance, and a lot of breaks. The reason I'm reviewing Bloodborne 2 years after its March 24th, 2015 release date is because I just recently decided to go for its Platinum Trophy. And let me tell you, the journey to achieving this particular Platinum Trophy has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my video game career. At times, Bloodborne is just absolutely brutal, but mostly, the game was relentless in its quest to make you a better gamer. I know Bloodborne kicked my ass thousands of times, and each time I died, I learned how to approach a certain situation differently, or that I needed to change my playstyle altogether. I really am much more patient now than I ever was before I played Bloodborne, and believe me, this game will try your patience like no other. Now that may not sound enticing at all for those who haven't played a From Software title. So you'll just have to trust me when I say, you need to play them. All of them if you can. For me personally though, if I'd recommend just one From Software game for you to spend your hard-earned cash on, it would be Bloodborne hands down. So, without further introduction, let's dive into the review. Bloodborne is a From Software game, and ever since Demon's Souls, Hidetaka Miyazaki and the team have been crafting incredibly unique games that thrive on a formula that on paper sounds maddening, but in practice is oh so satisfying. Not to say that this formula hadn't been done before, but From Software refined and expanded on the potential of this particular type of game, and fully realized it in the form of the action RPG. And, having been familiar with the Dark Souls games, I had a rough idea of what I was getting into with Bloodborne. Apart from a few technical problems and the occasional unresponsive button, Bloodborne's gameplay is phenomenal. It's quick and fluid, yet it has weight. Each enemy has a unique set of moves that keeps you on your toes. However, the weapon you equip largely determines how intimate you'll need to get when in combat. Weapons like the Saw Cleaver and Tonitrus require you to be up close and personal with enemies, while the Hunter's Axe and Ludwig's Holy Blade allow significantly more distance. The inclusion of a secondary firearm can also greatly influence the tide of battle, should you choose to learn the game's parry system. Bloodborne does not teach you about the parry system early in the game, you just have to stumble upon it. But once you do, it is a total game changer. Hitting an enemy with a Quicksilver bullet right before he attacks will see him stumble to his knees, granting you an extremely small window to haul ass over to him and hit him with a light melee attack. The result is a devastating visceral attack that takes a sizable chunk of your enemy's health, and can even restore recently lost health. That leads me to talk about another addition to Bloodborne's combat system. You can gain back lost health, but you only get a short window to do it. This mechanic is essentially giving the player incentive to always be on the offensive. That's what mainly separates Bloodborne from the developer's Dark Souls titles. Instead of retreating to heal after an attack like in Dark Souls, you need to get even more aggressive, using your blood vials only when you absolutely have to. Though, as you progress further in the game, not only do you build up a large collection of blood vials, but they are also incredibly cheap, so you'll never have to worry about running out, or having to farm for them. Now, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the boss battles in Bloodborne. They're hard. Extremely hard, especially in the Chalice dungeons, but they are far from unbeatable. The thing I absolutely love about Bloodborne that I can't say about many other games is that I actually develop a respect for each boss I face. Not since Metal Gear Solid have I felt this way about video game AI. Each boss manages to feel incredibly unique, possessing a wide variety of different movesets that forces you to really observe how each boss fights. As is the same in all of From Software's titles, the boss battles increase in difficulty the further into the fight, pushing your skills and patience to the limit. Don't expect to walk into a battle and beat the boss on your first try. Once you beat a boss, and the sky rains blood while the words "Prey Slaughtered" appear on your screen, You feel like an absolute badass. The one major hindrance to Bloodborne lies in its technical performance. Oftentimes my game would freeze when I was faced with multiple enemies, or even during a boss battle. I also witnessed several hard crashes during my time with the game. The load times also have to be addressed. Every time you die, which is a lot, and when you need to travel to your hunter's dream, or to a new area, you enter a loading screen. At best, it's a minor annoyance, but at worst, it can completely take you out of the experience. When it comes to character design, Bloodborne boasts some of the most unique and creative characters I've seen in the game. Each enemy type looks and fights like something in Bloodborne's world would. All of the human AI have English accents and Victorian-era clothing, which helps give the game a very idiosyncratic identity.
Are you that outsider? Well, sorry, but I don't want anything to do with you. Trot along, will ya?
Even Bloodborne's bosses exemplify the game's amazing character design. The way each boss fights directly correlates to his design. For example, the Cleric Beast has one lanky arm and one very large arm. This alerts the player that the Cleric Beast will mainly attack and do the most damage with the bigger arm. The player then knows which way to dodge the Cleric Beast's attacks by simply observing his design. Some of Bloodborne's enemies are just outright terrifying. You can walk up to what looks like a very normal-looking man, and suddenly he bends over, shrieking in pain. You have no time to question why he is in pain, because a second later, snakes come shooting out of his head. The hairs on your arms shoot up, and a tingling sensation passes through your spine. Your first instinct is to run and hide, until you muster up the courage to face him. This happened to me several times when coming across some of Bloodborne's more horrific enemy types. Some enemies really take advantage of Bloodborne's stellar sound design. I remember a specific instance in a Chalice dungeon where I came across a mysterious ghost-like woman. From a distance, I could hear her harsh breathing, almost like she was gasping for air. As I approached her, she vanished, and her omnipresent laugh made me feel as though she leapt out of my television and into my room. I swear a game has not caused me to feel that petrified since Silent Hill on the original PlayStation. This type of situation is incredibly common in Bloodborne, as the sound design can transform an already claustrophobic setting into a pulsating nightmare, especially if you play in the dark.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
I won't get into spoilers, but I will say the most fascinating part of Bloodborne is its story. At first, it may not seem like there is much of a story, because the game doesn't bombard you with details. But make no mistake, Bloodborne is soaked in lore, and makes you work to uncover its secrets. Intense investigation and reading, as well as a large amount of questioning, will finally give you the answers you work so tirelessly to obtain. Yharnam is brimming with history, and it's all up to you to uncover if you want. If not, the game still provides a wide variety of awe-inspiring locations for you to run around and explore. However, if you choose to learn about the dark secrets Yharnam harbors, be prepared for an incredible, mysterious, and a little bit weird journey that would make H.P. Lovecraft proud, especially during the second half of the game, which presents some serious epistemological and metaphysical questions should you decide to entertain them.
Eyes are yet to open. Fear the old blood.
Bloodborne also offers a new Game Plus mode, as well as a new edition called Chalice Dungeons for those who aren't quite ready to leave the nightmare. The Chalice Dungeons can be either fixed or procedurally generated depending on which dungeon you decide to create. If you want to pursue it, there is a trophy for completing a mini-campaign within the Chalice Dungeons. I will warn you though, it is a really hard trophy to obtain. It was the last trophy I obtained before the Platinum. The Chalice Dungeons can be very rewarding, and also very useful for obtaining materials that are scarce in the actual game. However, therein lies my issue with the Chalice Dungeons. They just aren't as good as the actual game, and just feel tacked on. And to give incentive for the player to use them, the developer hides important materials within the Chalice Dungeons that are otherwise extremely hard to obtain in the actual game. This wouldn't be so bad if the Chalice Dungeons were half as interesting as the main game. If you take away the lore, the varying locales, and the sheer breadth of the main game, and constrict the player to a dreary, confined space that repeats many of the same areas, you are just left with the combat. Simply fighting with no specific goal other than to farm for supplies is just monotonous and boring. Like most From Software titles, Bloodborne has a helpful at times, albeit confusing multiplayer mode. I love the way Bloodborne interweaves multiplayer with the story through the use of insight. I won't share what insight actually is, because it is tied to the story, but I will say that in order to summon a friend into your world, you must spend 1 insight point. Interestingly, some bosses actually become harder with a companion, so you must pick and choose when to summon them into battle. I personally chose to play Bloodborne exclusively offline, but it's a welcome addition for those who want it. Overall, Bloodborne is an incredible journey of trials and tribulations through a hellish world overrun by demonic and otherworldly creatures. While the frame rate and loading times occasionally take you out of the experience, the mysteries of Yharnam, challenging boss battles, and just plain addicting gameplay of Bloodborne will suck you back in for hours. And even though the Chalice dungeons don't offer the same level of immersion as the main story, they do contain some of the hardest bosses in the game, if you're up for the challenge. Bloodborne is one of PlayStation 4's best exclusives, and is a must-own game for any PlayStation owner. I will give Bloodborne a 9 out of 10.